Hey, Squirrel Squad listeners. How are y'all today? Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. I got to thinking about that copyright thing. I wonder if it's my pillow. But everybody's got, lots of people have pillows. Maybe I have to put a little copyright symbol on there or something. Anyway, sorry, I got a little dental glue on my tongue and it's making me talk crazy. 27, Anne of Avonlea, chapter 27, an afternoon at the stone house. Store-bought teeth. Got to love them. It's better than no teeth. But I tell you what, that glue's no joke. Where are you going all dressed up, Anne? Davey wanted to know. You look bully in that dress. I can't say some words. Anne had come down to dinner in a new dress of pale green muslin, the first color she had worn since Matthew's death. It became her perfectly, bringing out all of the... Let's take a little drink, see if this will help melt it. Some hot tea. This is still hot from yesterday, y'all. I mean, it's not hot, but it's warm since 5 o'clock yesterday, and that was Wednesday. Today's Thursday, and it's 8:30 in the morning. Wild. Now, I think that's better. Let's see. Davey, how many times have I told you that you mustn't use that word? She rebuked. I'm going to Ecolodge. Take me with you, entreated Davey. I would if I were driving, but I'm going to walk, and it's too far for your 8-year-old legs. Besides, Paul is going with me, and I feel you don't enjoy yourself in his company. Oh, I like Paul lots better than I did, said Davey, beginning to make fearful inroads into his pudding. Since I've got pretty good myself, I don't mind his being gooder so much. If I can keep on, I'll catch up with him someday, both in legs and goodness. Besides, Paul's real nice to us second primer boys in school. He won't let the other big boys meddle with us, and he shows us lots of games. How came Paul to fall into the brook at noon hour yesterday? Asked Anne. I met him on the playground, such a dripping figure that I sent him promptly home for clothes without waiting to find out what had happened. Well, it was partly a Zaxcent, explained Davy. He stuck his head in on purpose, but the rest of him fell in accidentally. We was all down at the brook, and Priley Rogerson got mad at Paul about something. She's awful mean and horrid anyway, if she is pretty, and said that his grandmother put his hair up in curl rags every night. Paul wouldn't have minded what she said, I guess, but Gracie Andrews laughed, and Paul got awful red 'cause Gracie's his girl, you know. He's clean gone on her, brings her flowers, carries her books as far as the shore road. He got as red as a beet and said his grandmother didn't do any such thing and his hair was born curly. And then he laid down on the bank and stuck his head right into the spring to show them. Oh, it wasn't the spring we drink out of, seeing a horrified look on Marilla's face. It was a little one lower down, but the bank's awful slippy, and Paul went right in. I tell you, he made a bully splash. Oh, Aunt Ann, I didn't mean to say that. She didn't like him saying bully. It just slipped out before I thought. He made a splendid splash, but he looked so funny when he crawled out all wet and muddy. The girls laughed more than ever, but Gracie didn't. She looked sorry. Gracie's a nice girl, but she's got a snub nose. When I get big enough to have a girl, I won't have one with a snub nose. I'll pick one with a pretty nose like yours, Ann. A boy who makes such a mess of syrup all over his face when he's eating his pudding will never get a girl to look at him, said Marilla severely. But I'll wash my face before I go courting, protested Davy, trying to improve his manners by rubbing the back of his hand over the smears. And I'll wash behind my ears, too, without being told. I remembered to this morning, Marilla. I don't forget half as often as I did, but... And Davy sighed. There's so many corners about a fellow that's awful hard to remember them all. Well, if I can't go to Miss Lavender's, I'll go over and see Mrs. Harrison. Mrs. Harrison's an awful nice woman, I tell you. She keeps a jar of cookies in her pantry a purpose for little boys. And she always gives me the scrapings out of a pan she's mixed up a plum cake in. A good many plums stick to the sides, you see. Mr. Harrison was always a nice man, but he's twice as nice since he got married over again. I guess getting married makes folks nicer. Why don't you get married, Marilla? I want to know. He's something. Marilla's state of single blessedness had never been a sore point with her, so she answered amiably with an exchange of significant looks with Anne that she supposed it was because nobody would have her. But maybe you never ask anybody to have you, protested Davy. Oh, Davy, said Dora primly, shocked into speaking without being spoken to. It's the men that have to do the asking. Well, I don't know why they have to do it always, grumbled Davy. Seems to me everything's put on the men in this world. Can I have some more pudding, Marilla? You've had as much as was good for you, said Marilla, but she gave him a moderate second helping. I wish people could live on pudding. Why can't they, Marilla? I want to know. Because they'd soon get tired of it. I'd like to try that for myself, said skeptical Davy. But I guess it's better to have pudding only on fish and company days than none at all. They never have any at Milty Bolter's. Milty says when company comes, his mother gives them cheese and cuts it herself, one little bit apiece, and one over for manners. If Milty Bolter talks like that about his mother, at least you needn't repeat it, said Marilla severely. Bless my soul, Davy had picked this expression up from Mr. Harrison and used it with great gusto. Milty meant it as a compliment. Compliment. He's awful proud of his mother 'cause folks say she could scratch a living on a rock. I suppose them pesky hens are in my pansy bed again, said Marilla, rising and going out hurriedly. The slandered hens were nowhere near the pansy bed, and Marilla did not even glance at it. Instead, she sat down on the cellar hatch and laughed until she was ashamed of herself. I figured that's why she went out. When Anne and Paul reached the stone house that afternoon, they found Miss Lavender and Charlotta the Fourth in the garden, weeding, raking, clipping, and trimming as if for dear life. Miss Lavender, herself all gay and sweet in frills and laces she loved, dropped her shears and ran joyously to meet her guest, while Charlotta the Fourth grinned cheerfully. Welcome, Anne. I thought you'd come today. You belong to the afternoon, so it brought you. Things that belong together are sure to come together. What a lot of trouble that would save some people if they only knew it, but they don't. And so they waste beautiful energy moving heaven and earth to bring things together that don't belong. And you, Paul, why, you've grown. You're half a head taller than when you were here before. Yes, I've begun to grow like pigweed in the night, as Mrs. Lynde says, said Paul in frank delight over the fact. Grandma says it's the porridge taking effect at last. Perhaps it is. Goodness knows, Paul sighed deeply. I've eaten enough to make anyone grow. I do hope now that I've begun I'll keep on. till I'm as tall as father. He's 6 feet, you know, Miss Lavender." Yes, Miss Lavender did know. The flush on her pretty cheeks deepened a little. She took Paul's hand on one side and Anne's on the other and walked to the house in silence. "Is it a good day for the echoes, Miss Lavender?" queried Paul anxiously. The day of his first visit had been too windy for echoes, and Paul had been much disappointed. "Yes, just the best kind of a day," answered Miss Lavender, rousing herself from her revelry. "But first, we're all going to have something to eat. I know you two folks didn't walk all the way back here through those beech woods without getting hungry. And Charlotta the Fourth and I can eat any hour of the day. We have such obliging appetites. So we'll just make a raid on the pantry. Fortunately, it's lovely and full. I had a presentiment day that I was going to have company today." I had a presentiment. And Charlotta the Fourth and I prepared. "I think you're one of the people who always have nice things in their pantry," declared Paul. "Grandma's like that too, but she doesn't approve of snacks between meals. I wonder," he added meditatively, "if I ought to eat them away from home when I know she doesn't approve." "Oh, I don't think she would disapprove after you've had a long walk. That makes a difference," said Miss Lavender, exchanging amused glances with Anne over Paul's brown curls. "I suppose that snacks are extremely unwholesome. That's why we have them so often at Ecolodge. We, Charlotta the Fourth and I, live in defiance of every known law of diet. We eat all sorts of indigestible things whenever we happen to think of it, by day or night, and we flourish like green bay trees. We're always intending to reform. Whenever we read an article in a paper warning us against something we like, we cut it out and pin it up on the kitchen wall so that we'll remember it. But we never can somehow until after we've gone and eaten that very thing. Nothing has ever killed us yet, but Charlotta the Fourth has been known to have bad dreams after we've eaten donuts and mince pies and fruit cake before we went to bed. Grandma lets me have a glass of milk and a slice of bread and butter before I go to bed. And on Sunday night, she puts jam on the bread," said Paul. "So I'm always glad when it's Sunday night. For main reasons, that one. For more reasons than one, excuse me. Sunday is a very long day on the shore road. Grandma says it's all too short for her and that Father never found Sundays tiresome when he was a little boy. It wouldn't seem so long if I could talk to my rock people, but I never do that because Grandma doesn't approve of it on Sundays. I think a good deal, but I'm afraid my thoughts are worldly. Grandma says we should never think anything but religious thoughts on Sundays. But teacher here said once that every really beautiful thought was religious, no matter what it was about or what day we thought it on. But I feel sure Grandma thinks that sermons and Sunday school lessons are the only things you can think truly religious thoughts about. And when it comes to a difference of opinion between Grandma and teacher, I don't know what to do. In my heart," Paul laid his hand on his breast and raised very serious blue eyes to Miss Lavender's immediately sympathetic face, "I agree with teacher, but then you see Grandma has brought Father up her way and made a brilliant success of him. And teacher has never brought anybody up yet, though she's helping with Davey and Dora. But you can't tell how they'll turn out until they are grown up, so sometimes I feel as if I might be safer to go by Grandma's opinions." "I think it would," agreed Anne solemnly. "Anyway, I dare say that if your Grandma and I both got down to what we really do mean, under our different ways of expressing it, we'd find out we both mean much the same thing. You'd better go by her way of expressing it since it's been the result of experience. We'll have to wait until we see how the twins do turn out before we can be sure that my way is equally good. After lunch, they went back to the garden when Pa made the acquaintance of the echoes to his wonder and delight. Wonder and delight. While Anne and Miss Lavender sat on the stone bench under the poplar and talked. So, you're going away in the fall, said Miss Lavender wistfully. I ought to be glad for your sake, Anne, but I'm horribly selfishly sorry I shall miss you so much. Oh, sometimes I think it's of no use to make friends. They only go out of your life after a while and leave a hurt that is worse than the emptiness before they came. That sounds like something Miss Eliza Andrews might say, but never Miss Lavender, said Anne. Nothing is worse than emptiness. And I'm not going out of your life. There are such things as letters and vacations. Dearest, I'm afraid you're looking a little pale and tired. Oh, hoo, went Pa on the dike where he'd been making noises diligently, not all of them melodious in the making, but all coming back, transmuted into the very gold and silver of the sound by the fairy alchemists over the river. Miss Lavender made an impatient movement with her pretty hands. I'm just tired of everything, even of the echoes. There's nothing in my life but echoes. Echoes of lost hopes and dreams and joys. They're beautiful and mocking. Oh, Anne, it's hard of me to talk like this when I have company. It's just that I'm getting old and it doesn't agree with me. I know I'll be fearfully cranky by the time I'm 60, but perhaps all I need is a course of blue pills. At this moment, Carlotta the Fourth, who had disappeared after lunch, returned and announced that the northeast corner of Mr. John Kimball's pasture was red with early strawberries. And wouldn't Miss Shirley like to go and pick some? Early strawberries for tea, exclaimed Mrs. Lavender. Oh, I'm not so old as I thought, and I don't need a single blue pill. Girls, when you come back with your strawberries, we'll have tea out here under the silver poplar. I'll have it all ready for you with homegrown cream. Anne and Carlotta the Fourth accordingly betook themselves back to Mr. Kimball's pasture, a green remote place where the air was as soft as velvet and fragrant as a bed of violets and golden as amber. Oh, isn't it sweet and fresh back here, breathed Anne. I just feel as if I were drinking in the sunshine. Wetting my whistle time. Sorry. Yes, ma'am. So do I. That's just exactly how I feel too, ma'am, agreed Carlotta the Fourth, who would have said precisely the same thing if Anne had remarked that she felt like a pelican of the wilderness. Always, after Anne had visited Ecolodge, Carlotta the Fourth mounted to her little room over the kitchen and tried before her looking glass to speak and look and move like Anne. Carlotta could never flatter herself that she quite succeeded, but practice makes perfect. As Carlotta had learned at school, and she fondly hoped that in time she might catch the trick of that dainty uplift of chin, that quick, starry outflashing of eyes, that vision of walking as if you were a bough swaying swaying in the wind. It seemed so easy when you watched Anne. Charlotta the Fourth admired Anne wholeheartedly. It was not that she thought her so very handsome, but Diana Barry's beauty, golly, where'd it go? Diana Barry's beauty of crimson cheek and black curls was much more to Charlotta the Fourth's taste